Sam back with you here on Tuesday, August 28th. And again, we're looking at traditional assets here as it's a Tuesday. So as we do on these days, we poll our members. And second up by request is a look at the Aussie dollar to the US dollar. So I've got it up here on a 3-day. Now, I've mentioned this many times before, but just for anyone that's new or has just started following us here or new members, I want to strongly encourage you that if you're looking at FX pairs, you really want to look long term. I would tell you the shortest time frame to even consider for FX is the 60-minute. I really prefer it 4 hour and above, but I will go to the 60-minute to dig out a count if need be, because these are trending markets, so they can trend for years. So you really have to, it requires a different mentality. There has to be a lot of patience and a discipline and a willingness to wait for targets to be met or for entries to be approached, rather than trying to catch all the little noisy swings that will happen down on the lower time frames. But if you give it that kind of that distance, that respect for longer term trends, you're going to avoid all the noise that you see here, and you're going to be able to participate in some of these very long trends. This is where big money can be made, but it really requires a discipline and a willingness to be patient as you approach these markets. So here, looking at the 3-day here, we can get a pretty good handle on the count here. So really, regardless of how you count this, I mean, that was pretty extreme here. We can complete up here some, whether it's a diagonal or an ABC, doesn't really matter. We can look from this pivot and we can work our way down and say, where are we likely to see the next pivot? So I'm going all the way back here to 2002 lows. So I don't think that has much influence here. So I wouldn't be looking at this necessarily as a 1-2. But I do think we have more downside yet to come here. So I think there's a count here that's really worth looking at. So coming from this top here, where's our top here? 2011, right? I know it seems weird to be considering a trade that's 7 years. We're working from a pivot from 7 years ago. But that's how you got to approach FX. And believe me, I've tried every possible way to trade in FX. And I find that if you just stick with the 4 hours and above, you'll be well rewarded, but it requires a real patience. So let's just look through it here. So working from this top here, it does look like well, let's open it up here so you can see it better here. So we do get this ABC. I'm calling that my A. I've got another 3 going up, calling that the B. Remember, B can go highs, always a push to challenge the previous pivot. Can't make it, rolls over. So there's a bit of symmetry distortion here I don't love, but the count is so clean coming from this pivot up here that I'm leaning into this here, and I'll show you why I like this count. It subdivides so perfectly here. So coming from this pivot up here, if we allow this to be our B wave here, right? So ABC into my B. Well, straight rip down sets up my A, then I get my retrace for my 2, and then it looks like I've got a very clean 3, 4, 5 coming down here. Now we have a diagonal, right? So note the wave 4 overlapping the 1. We can allow for that in a wave 1, an A wave or a wave 1. So we get a leading diagonal into a 1 wave. And I think this was technical. So remember, in a diagonal, we're looking for a relationship between, we look for that fib swing. The trade is for the 4th to the 5th. So we don't get, it's not perfect here. So then if I don't see that, I'll check from the 2 as well. And that looks a little bit better here. So we take the length of the 3rd, we get the 50 there, but with our Elliott hats on, we're looking here. So we're between the 38 and the 50. We do get the overlap here. We come up shy on the target. Now, as I will often remind you, just because a target there does not mean it must be realized. Eventually, they get it here, and they get all the way to second target before we get any kind of reaction, and ultimately look down here. So we get damn near to the tick, the 3rd algo target. And as I've shown you before, many times when you're seeing that, we know that that's going to be relative to the 1618. So that's often a tell and just a shorthand way to look for our 3rd. But in looking at that, I think what we get is 1, 2, 3. So if I measure it, so here, if this is my 1 wave, we're starting that 1 wave up here from the B wave here. So if I take the length of my 1, and I project it from my 2. Now, first thing I'm checking to see, am I long enough? Have I gone longer than the wave 1? Because that's a pretty long wave 1. So here's my 2. So I do get through it. I'm kind of in no man's land here. So it makes me want to check that, but I like that at least I've got a contender for my third given the length, and there's fairly good subdivision here. So you can look at it even here on the 3-day. You can see this, that certainly looks like that's a 4 coming down into a 5. So whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that looks like that could be it. So this is that's the most obvious place to be looking for a 4, and then it looks like we go 1, 2, 3 into an ABC, and then come down, finish for the 5th down here, although we'd have to go to much smaller time frames to dig out that low, or that subdivision here, but we'll get there. Let's go from the 3-day down to the 1-day and push back here. So if I look into the middle of this, I can pretty easily spot here. This looks like 1, 2, 3. Here's that 4. And it looks like we go 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like my 5 is down here. So in that, take this up a degree here. So it's worth doing this just so you can get clear on this. So it looks like from there, now we're going to have a little trouble with this 5th. So it looks like we go 1, 2, 3, ABC into a 4. You know, let's check that. So let me change that color here, and we'll go down a degree. So we'll go submicro here. All right, so we could have A, B, C. That actually looks more like it there because I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into that. So it looks to me like we get an A, B, C. Now we got to dig down into that 5th. All right, so here, and I'm going to go from the daily. Right, this is the progression I would do it. I'll often go to the 3-hour just because everybody's looking at the 4. So I'll look at that 3-hour and just check on that, see if I can make sense of that. So it looks to me like if I open that up, I can get it here by going 1, 2. Looks like I get 3, 4 down for my 5. So I get 5. Let's bring it down here. 5 of 5 of 3. All right, now who are you related to? Oh yeah, that's down here. So I got the wrong color. So let me change that color so I don't lose my place there. Okay, so let's go up to let's go to micro on that. Okay, that fit there. So there we go. So we get 5 of 5 of 5 of 3. Right, so we can look here. So of course we got to check now. So here, note here, we don't have an overlap. So we have an impulsive structure to finish. So I would look here, if that's my 2, we check that 3 to the 4. So lo and behold, what do we see? All right, so we come right between the 23 and the 38. We go algo target damn near to the tick, and I'm on a 3-hour chart. So it looks like we get a couple of ticks through it. So they get their fill. You think that's talk about a reaction. Right, so the count plays here. So it looks to me like this coming here now just to fill it all out. Looks like we can go A, B, and finish with the C here. So let's lower this degree. Let's just line it up here. It's easy. It's worth doing this because it's easy to lose your places. You just saw me do it, where you're going, wait a minute, who are you attached to? And if you don't have the color separation, that can make it tougher here. So and then yet again, this looks like we go here pardon me, that wrong one. So it looks like I can go yet again here. I want this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, at this time frame here, it's much easier to spot this here. Let's go down. We can go submicro yet again. So this look as my B wave here looks like I go, if that's my A going in here, looks like I go A, B, C. So I get my A here. So I get A, B, C. Let's push this down here. And I will keep adjusting these degrees so I don't get lost here. So let's go, we'll go to yellow and we'll go up a degree, go to micro. Okay, so all of that plays pretty well. Get you down here, take you. The most annoying thing in TradingView is that it does that when you first grab it. Okay, so let's change that color to blue. Okay, so there's my 4. And let's go up a degree. Bear with me here. Okay, there we go. All right, so coming down, there's the 3. A, B, C into my A. A, B, C into my B. So here's my B. Then I go up in 5, finished my C. Look at the beautiful subdivisions. Just couldn't be any prettier. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, algo, target, boom. All right, so that tells me that I've got high probability that I've got my 3rd in here. So let's clean this up and think about what happens next and what that might mean for where we're going as relates to what's happened since then. So, well, this sure looks like an A wave, right? So that's pretty easy to spot. All right, again, at this time frame, these are much, looks like I go here, finish up here. So it looks like I've got a diagonal to finish that fifth. All right, let's pull back out and see where we are. So let me reset here. If I can do that. Let's go back out to, let's go to an 8 hour here so I can just get a handle on where we are. Okay, so here's the A, the B, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is interesting here. We get a double top here, so we fail to hit a target before we roll over. So clearly we get a diagonal, right? It's a deep, deep overlap here, and that's why you'll often find these, right? Where can we look for an ending diagonal like this? C wave or a fifth wave. And so this plays as my 4 here. So looking for that, so again, as with any diagonal, we're looking for the algo play here at the 4. That looks pretty deep, but let's check it. So from my 2 to my start of my 1, it's unbelievable. Okay, so here we go. So this is a failed target here. So what do? Come right to the golden zone. All right, so again, often that's something you've got to be cautious to be looking for. It's not the 2 to the 3 like an impulse. In a diagonal, it's the start of the 1 through the pivot high or low, whatever the case may be, of your third. That's where you're looking for. So we get a little reaction here. We go into golden zone. They defend the 65, rip it up, but can't get to target, right? Remember, just because there is a target doesn't mean that it's going to be realized. So whatever algorithm bought it here, that defended there, gets stopped out right here. Right, so they do not get their target. So what does that mean they're doing next? Right, as I've shown you this many times, that doesn't mean that they short there. What it means is that they're going to take the next 50 coming back up. So if we look at that from at this point now, did we get a 50? We might have gotten one right. Yeah, we did. So there's one right there. Okay, so upon getting, well, you've got them in between. So remember, there's always algos in between. So here's a 50, 2 and through, they get second target, and then they get the reaction. But on the larger degree, so assuming, so let me recreate that here. I went too fast, so bear with me. All right, so here's the failed target. Here's the golden zone. They defend, they take it up, double top, they get stopped here. All right, so what are they looking for? On this degree here, and now I'm on an 8 hour, they're looking for swing high. Whenever we get a pivot down here, we may have it, we don't know. Here's the next trade for the algorithm, right? So if we'll go up here, they're gonna sell that looking for that. Right, that's the trade that they're waiting for. They will defend right up to that 65. Now, if they were to get stopped out, they would do the exact same thing. Then they just take swing low to wherever the pivot is here, take the next 50. It's pretty simple, actually. So we've got a candidate here for my 4. So if I pull this back out, let's think about where we might be. So if that's the 4, right now we're just in hurry up and wait looking for a 2. Because this, that's kind of ugly here on this time frame. So let's pick that apart and see if we can call this completed. Let's go down. We'll go back to our 3 hour. So very choppy. This is why I want to encourage you to stay with the longer time frames, because FX is so incredibly report sensitive. So it's just the last report that came out causes all of these spikes. It's very algo driven. You got to be careful in FX. So that's why you're better to trade smaller size on larger time frames than try and get in and mess with this. Not that it's not technical, not that you can't do it. It's just harder to do it, and you got to really stay on top of it. And a lot of times it's, depending on where you are in the world, the reports that will move the market that can cause you either to hit target or get stopped out can often happen while you're sleeping. Doesn't matter where you are. So if we look at this move coming down here, that looks like that's a 1-2. Then we go 1, 2. So unless we're going to have a diagonal, you couldn't go 3, 4, 5. Let's think about that. You might have to do it. Well, let's check the ratios here. So if that's a 1 and that's a 2, where are we looking for our third? All right, so that's close enough to the 1618 that I would consider that, except we have a tricky count here because we don't have a good impulsive structure here. So here, all right, so on the fly here, I'm gonna relabel. Here's why. So this does look like my good 3, but it looks like I've got an ABC here, or it looks like I might have a diagonal in my 1. So let's consider this. So this is how I would approach this. Given that I've got a diagonal structure, I need that 1 to get overlapped here. So this looks more to me like I may have an ABC into a 1. So in a diagonal structure, I'm looking for an ABC. So this looks to me like I could have ABC into my 1 wave. All right, so let's consider that. We can take that down a degree and see if this will play as we have it. So if that's ABC into my 1 wave, so there's my candidate for a 1. So well, here I've just barely overlapped here. So if that's 1, 2, 3, let's see, let's think twice now. Here, that could be, there could be more downside to go. So again, I don't work these out in advance because I want you to go through the thought process with me. So this could be ABC there. So that could be, as I kind of pick this apart here, so let's think about what that relationship would look like. So then we'd be looking potentially here, if that's 1, 2, well, here's my 1, 2, 7, 2, so we're certainly longer here. We've got an ABC in the middle of that. Let's move this off here. We can come back to that. All right, so does that fit? ABC, 1, 2. ABC into my A, so I've got ABC into my A, ABC into my B, down for the C, I can get A, B, C, and it looks like I've got ABC into my C, so there's a 1, 2, ABC into my 3. All right, so if that's the case, where am I looking for? Just as before, I'm looking for the start of the 1 through the pivot of the 3rd. Right, so 38, 50 would be ideal. So if we're going to work our way back up, so always looking left, looking for any kind of tell. So I've got, I would do it this way. Let's do it. I would draw it this way. So I've got this little area of resistance up here. So support becomes resistance. Potentially now we've got resistance sitting up here. I got my point of control right here at the 50. So if I'm going to come up here, and if this, well, this could just be the A wave. If I'm going to get some sort of A, B, C, I'm looking to come down to that. All right, so let's see if that would all play. So if we come up here, now remember, if that's going to play as my 3, and it's going to be a diagonal, I have to overlap that 1. So if that's my 1, I've got to get up, I've got to get this high, right? So that sets it up perfectly, actually. So I love when that happens. All right, so 1, 2, 3, A, B, C into my 4. Now I can, the reason I like that is because I've got to get there for this count to hold. So if I don't, it tells me I'm wrong in the way I've done that subdivision. If I don't make this before heading down and breaching some of these significant congestion areas, if I start to break down here, then this count is invalid. It's wrong. Right? So I've got to rethink it because I don't get the overlap of the 1. If this is going to play as the 3, 4 and come down for the 5, well, now let's try and put that back together. Let's go back to the 8 hour, see how that would fit. Can I do it on the 8? Yeah, okay, so let's go back to the daily. All right, think about what that would mean. Okay, so here's our candidate, or my C here, for my 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 down here. I mean, that would be potentially, shit, that could be just the 1 wave. That could be, so we could have a leading diagonal. Okay, so that works perfectly. So if we were going to pivot here and get a reaction and complete that leading diagonal, well, we're not even challenging this pivot here just yet. So if we were going to go further down to a more traditional target for our wave 5, might have to move this out in time. If these are going to be down here, well, we got that could very well just be the 1 wave. That could be our 1 wave of our 5th wave. Right now, we don't know because we don't know how far this goes and we don't have our 4 yet. But if I were just laying out the roadmap, well, of course, the next thing I'm going to look for is, do I have a relationship here between the length of the 3rd and where I pivoted here for the 5th? Well, if I go to my 2 and draw down to my pivot low, what have we done? Right, that should surprise no one. Right to the 50. Where's our long-term target? See how that now the whole thing starts to fit together? So let's reset it. So we'd have A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, right to the 50. I promise you that's an algo that sells there. That's right. I hope we're past the point where I need to prove that to you again. So that's clearly that's algo participation in there. Here's the obvious pivot, swing high, swing low, right to the 50. The algos kick in. Here's their target. That would complete the 5th of the C wave here, so the whole thing, so that would relate. Symmetry, it's not ideal, so it would look like this. So we'd have this A, B, C, all right? So that's a big C wave. But that's the way the count lays out. So unless you had to rethink the whole thing because of some count invalidation here, I think that that's a reasonable play to be made. Actually, no, it's kind of unusual here. As I sit here looking at it, it's not unlike what we're seeing in Bitcoin, where we had the very short AB, and then we had, this was actually infinitely easier to count coming down than Bitcoin. But AB is something, because we're kind of wrestling with Bitcoin as to whether or not we've got 1, 2, or AB, and then this very, very complex correction that we're in the midst of. But this lack of symmetry is the same problem that we're having with Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has done it this way. Not to digress too much for those of you interested in the Aussie dollar. But the third, and now we've just put through this. So because it was there in Bitcoin, I'm kind of curious. So if I work from this pivot low, not there on the traditional or original, I would check these just to see. Maybe modified going to get it. It's not ideal, but with that break here, that adds more credibility to the idea that there's new lows to come. So I don't get exactly what I was looking for there. It was to the tick in Bitcoin. So let's bring all of this up here. So that's my C wave here. Yeah, so it would go like this. So that's the 5th right into the 50. Just exactly what you'd anticipate. There's my 4. Here's my wave 1. Not even no threat to that wave 1, at least not yet. And as we move down here, looks like that's a reasonable target. There's our long-term target. So just a straight algo play. It's going to stay short. It does not give a damn about any Elliott count. It's just going to stay short until it gets to that target, or it gets stopped out here at the 65. Right, so as I will always remind you, first question is, what did the algos do last? What are they likely to do next? So you can see here how technical this has been. So if we look, you see what happened here? So we come to the 50 with this target. If this count is going to hold, then we're just going down back to the 50. Then here's their target. There's the first target. So different algorithm, right? Not this, shit, who knows who's behind these algorithms? But I mean, or how many there are. As I will often tell you, this is just the one that we can spot. This is the one that leaves footprints that we can track. So if we were to come up to that, that's a screaming sell. That's a must sell in my book. So we're not there. We're a ways away. I'm sitting here on a daily chart. So what do you do? All right. So I would alert the 38 just to see. I want to get more in tune with this, because right now I just alert this and let's see what happens. Shit, that could be there tomorrow. You never know. But right now it looks like we're heading lower here. So it looks to me like we're in the process of putting in the A wave. It looks like we're still trying to get up to put in our A wave, B yet to come. You could trade into that B into the C, knowing that you've got an exit strategy, so you'd be trying to catch the long into the short. Nothing wrong with that. And if that were to come down as that, let's take this off here. If that's our longer term target, if we were to come down into this as a 1-2, so if this were to finish here and we went 1-2, well, I mean, we could be going a lot lower. So you could have 3, 4, 5. I mean, you don't know, but it sets up that way. So if you try and outthink the market, that's usually a fool's errand. So just look at this. What does the count tell you? Where are the targets? What could be happening? If that were going that low, and then you put the whole thing back together, does that make sense? Could that be? Could we be going that far down? Well, again, it skews the symmetry even more in terms of the AB. Maybe you'd have to reconsider this as some sort of a combination. But right now, it just doesn't look like it's finished. So it looks like we've got 4 in, and we're just in the process of putting in the 1 wave of the 5th wave. No telling how low it could go. Could it go that low? Well, look left. All right, we've been there before, but it was a long time ago. All right, what are we there? We're 2009. Stranger things, right? So just follow the count, look for the probability zones, be disciplined with your money management. If the thing sets up and you get a chance to sell it here, then you sell it, you put your stop in, and you don't touch it. Particularly if you've got profit, right? Now here might be a place, if you were to come hit a target here, that might be a place to take a partial. Right, if you were a seller here. So if you come down, you hit, well, actually we'd be doing it this way. So if you hit target here, not a bad place to take a partial, and anticipating there's going to be some sort of a reaction. So I'm not saying you just short it and then check it 2 years later. I'm just saying, be thoughtful about where you'd be taking partial profits here, but maybe keep some of it in the market just in case you get the big targets. All right, here's the big one you're really shooting for. So if that went 1, 2, 3, who knows? I mean, you could get a diagonal. You just don't know. So you just wait and see, right? But that's what's setting up. So if you're not in it now, there's really not much to do here. Even if we go back to the 3 hours, man, if that's pivoting here, I'd be patiently waiting, right? So when I trade Forex, I want the longer term. So I'd be waiting for this, be waiting for that. Come on, just let it take its time. Reasonable candidate for the 3. If the 4 is going to come in over here, that's just setting up. This looks, I wouldn't be a buyer there trying to buy into the 4, but I sure would be a seller here looking for the 5. All right, guys, that's long enough. That's 25 minutes. Okay, with that, I'll wrap it. As always, if you want to learn more about what we do and teaching and mastering this methodology, it's something we have really put a system together so we can teach it to you. So we're as I've mentioned before, we're borrowing from the martial arts in that we have a belt system. So we progress you through the training. So you can't pass white belt builds. You can't pass a blue unless you pass the white or understand and have mastered everything in the white belt. Can't pass purple until you've mastered what's in blue. Can't get to brown until you. So it's a structured approach to learning this, and we challenge you along the way. Right? These are not easy. It's not just about, let's just get them through so they feel that sense of progression. We have lots of people take these tests and fail. And then they're like, God darn it. Because it's not about just making it easy for you and giving you that sense of progression. It's about ensuring that you have internalized this material and then you can recreate it quickly so that you're comfortable about where the probability zones are. Where are you wrong? Do you have a primary? Do you have an alternate? How would you trade this? And that's the theory behind it. And so far, it's been well received by the existing members, but we're not perfect. We're always looking to improve it, and we will continue to improve it. But that's probably a wrap for today. That gives you enough to chew on. You can learn more. You can follow us on Twitter. We like to do that. We always engage the best that we can with our Twitter followers. We appreciate that. And if you can find us online at tradedevils.com, you can learn more about the whole membership program and everything we have to offer there. That's tradedevils.com. All right, guys, see you later.